From League Safe World Headquarters, it's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. With Paul Charchian, Matt Harrison, Christian Peterson, and Brian Johnson.
We begin with DeAndre Hopkins. 2 touchdowns this year, which is not the end of the world, but the yardage numbers have been bad, and he's been soundly outplayed from a fantasy football perspective by rookie Will Fuller. We will begin with DeAndre Hopkins. Is the appropriate level of concern some, none, or acute? As reigning champion, you get to go first.
Oh, absolutely, I do. This may surprise you. I'm going to go acute
Ooh.
on DeAndre Hopkins.
All right.
Let's
start
things off with a bang here. So he does have 2 touchdowns, so it hasn't been a complete disaster so far, but he's been held to 54 yards or less in 3 of 4 games. Last week, Brock Osweiler was going bonkers in the first half. He literally was not even looking at Hopkins, didn't even throw to him. Had 1 catch by the end of the game. I think he had 2 or 3 targets. And the targets are the issue here. Last year, at this time through week 4, Hopkins led the NFL with 60 targets.
Wow, he had 60 through 4
games?
That's
a lot. Yeah, this year's leader through 4 weeks is Mike Evans with 50. So Hopkins was all over the field last year. However, when you go back and look at I went back to look at fantasy points per target for DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
To get a measure for kind of his efficiency, to see whether what he did last year was all because he was targeted so often. And sure enough, last year he scored 1.7 fantasy points per target. Among the top 24 wide receivers at the end of the year last year, that was just 16th. So he was not nearly as efficient as
when you get targeted that much, though, right? It's going to be hard to maintain a high level, that high of a level.
True.
Of productivity on
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, the point being here.
I mean, like Mike Wallace is extremely efficient under that standard because he's only getting targeted like 4 times a game, and he's got 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, but Antonio Brown was far more efficient, and he was also targeted a lot.
Yes, it can be
last year. So, point being, he was not very efficient with those targets last year. This year, his targets are down to 33, which is fewer than a guy on his own team, Will Fuller, which I don't think anybody anticipated. So he's getting half the targets. The quarterbacking situation isn't really any better. Osweiler isn't really any better than Brian Hoyer was last year. And he's even less efficient this year. He's 1.6 fantasy points per target this year. So you drafted DeAndre Hopkins as a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. That's what you were hoping to get. That's the level of draft capital you had to invest.
He was probably wide receiver 5 off the board.
And he's not the most efficient guy, and he's not getting the targets. He's not going to get anywhere near 196 targets, I think it was, last year. Maybe half that at this point is what he's on pace for. So I think this is a big problem. I think Will Fuller is legit, and he's legitimately taking away, half of Hopkins' targets, and I don't think he's going to return wide receiver 1 numbers because
All right,
of it.
and obviously you think if it's acute, you think it's going to continue.
I do.
All right. Fine. What is the appropriate level of concern for Dez Bryant? We begin with Brian.
I'll go with some. It was going to be acute when Jerry Jones was the only source we had saying he'll be fine, might play this week, because I don't trust Jerry Jones as far as I could throw him.
How far could you throw him? Have you done any analysis
I could
of that?
throw him about as far as the football helmet that the fan threw at him in the tunnel last week. Did you see that?
That was pretty good.
That made my day. But
well, he can't catch. He has terrible hands.
Wasn't he like a fullback or something, though, in college? I know he
Jerry
played
Jones
at Alabama with Jimmy Johnson, and that's how that whole thing started back in the day. But whatever. Ian Rappaport says Dez will be out 1 or 2 weeks. I was thinking it would be longer. I was a little worried about a hairline fracture in his knee.
It sounds bad to me, too.
Everyone was worried when they came out and said that's what it was. And then all of a sudden, over the weekend, they said, just a bone bruise.
Yeah, it's just a bone bruise. But I'm going some. He proved he can get it done with Dak Prescott. We were worried about that after week 1, where he was practically invisible. Had 7 catches for 102 yards against Washington, 3 for 40 and a touchdown against Chicago, the game he got hurt. So when he comes back, I think he and Dak can put up good numbers. So I'll just go some. I'll trust Ian Rappaport. I won't trust Jerry Jones that'll play this week or has a good chance to. But I'll say worst case scenario 2 weeks, so just hold on to Dez.
Okay.
I'm still a little worried, so some.
All right. What is the appropriate level of concern over Alshon Jeffery? None, some, or acute? Let's find out, beginning with Christian.
I'm going to go with none on Alshon Jeffery, and my answer to this actually changed a little bit this morning when we found out that Kevin White is going to be out for an extended period of time. We're not sure what that means, but he suffered the ankle injury in week 4, and it sounds like it is going to be a serious injury, and that's going to keep Kevin White out for a while. Before that, it really felt to me like, so the Bears in the offseason opted not to pay Alshon Jeffery. They opted not to give him a long-term contract, and there was a lot of back and forth in the press about do they not think he's worthy of being a number 1 wide receiver. I think they even came out and basically said that they weren't sure that he is an elite level number 1 wide receiver, and it felt like through the first few weeks they were force-feeding the ball to Kevin White, who was ridiculously inefficient. He was dropping everything, but they were targeting him almost twice as often as they were Jeffery, almost in an effort to prove that, hey, we were right about Jeffery. We've got this rookie, the second-year guy, Kevin White, who we think is going to take over, and then we were going to have been right about not paying Jeffery. But now they have no choice. He's the only guy that they have to throw to. Brian Hoyer has looked great in the last couple of games, might even be better than Jay Cutler, might hold that job. And so, again, with Kevin White out, I think the Bears are going to have no choice but to make Alshon Jeffery a target hog the rest of the season.
So, the appropriate level of concern for Odell Beckham, none, some, or acute. Brian?
I'm going to ignore all the temper tantrum stuff and just worry about the numbers here. So I'm going to go none.
None.
Beckham.
The Giants guy in the office says none. Fascinating. Okay.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Right,
we're
let's
talking
see if you
fantasy
can
football
validate it.
here.
Let's hear if you can validate
Through his first 4 games last year, he had 24 catches, 307 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 41 targets. This year, through 4 games, 22 catches, 303 yards, no touchdowns on 39 targets.
Okay,
pretty
that
much
was a lot of
identical
numbers.
numbers.
What are you
Identical
trying
numbers
to
other than
say?
the touchdowns.
Okay. All right.
Which he almost had a couple touchdowns this year. He was like a missed broken tackle. He got down to the 2 once, whatever. The touchdowns will come. He's one of 12 wide receivers with more than 5 red zone targets, one of 9 wide receivers with at least 3 targets from inside the 5-yard line. Everyone's saying Cruz is there, Shepard's there. He's not going to see as many opportunities. He's getting the same looks, ton of usage. Xavier Rhodes shut him down. He's an emerging elite cornerback. I'm willing to throw this past week out the window. And moving forward, I have no concern with Odell Beckham unless he – no concern. I'm done. I'm going to shut up now.
That's right.